Welcome to the latest addition to the Compliance Podcast Network, the podcast 10 for 10, which brings you the week's top 10 compliance stories curated together in one podcast each week. Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, brings you the compliance professional stories you need to be aware of at the end of your busy week. Sit back and in 10 minutes, hear about the stories every compliance professional should be aware of. Every Saturday, 10 for 10 highlights the most important news, insights, and analysis for the compliance professional, all curated by the voice of compliance, Tom Fox. Get your weekly filling of compliance stories with 10 for 10. Hosted by Tom Fox. 10 for 10 is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network. First, a word from the sponsor of the Compliance Podcast Network for this month, CITGO.
In the intricate world of ethics and compliance, each second is precious, and slow case closures are more than just delays, they're missed opportunities. Enter CITGO. Our solution revolutionizes case management, cutting closure times in half and turning every challenge into a chance for improvement. Imagine a workspace where efficiency and compliance coexist harmoniously. Don't just dream of faster resolutions, make it your reality. Visit ethico.com/CPN today to book a demo and dive into our exclusive white paper by Tom Fox, the ROI of compliance, and to try our free ROI calculator. Empower your team with the tools they deserve.
Welcome to the 10 for 10 for the week ending July 27, 2024. We begin with the victims' families of the 737 MAX air crash have announced they will oppose the Department of Justice's and Boeing's joint plea agreement, which was filed in court this week. The report came to us from Reuters, and the families feel like that it doesn't put sufficient specificity around Boeing and accountability around Boeing. And they believe that the deal is really just a sweetheart deal for Boeing. Maersk learned an expensive lesson when they fired a whistleblower who reported safety violations from the shipping company to the Department of Labor. That Maersk literally fired the employee for failing to report internally, which of course is illegal. It cost Maersk $700,000 in back wages and a settlement with the Department of Labor. Next up, the CITGO had some good news as it finally prevailed against an entity who paid bribes both to corrupt CITGO employees and to the owner of CITGO, the notoriously corrupt PDVSA, to get contracts. As also reported by Reuters, CITGO was able to receive $340,000 plus interest from a U.S. court in this bribery case. The corrupt company was Petroleum Logistics Services, and its founder, Jose Manuel Testino, who were found liable for fraud, breach of contract, and violations of RICO. So finally, some good news for CITGO. Our next story also comes to us from Reuters, and that's Senator Robert Menendez has announced his decision to resign from Congress after his corruption conviction. The resignation will take effect on August 30th, and the court's or the jury finding of corruption, I think, is pretty clearly correct. This is the Bars of Gold case. So goodbye to Democratic Senator Robert Menendez. He had sustained a couple of at least verdicts, not guilty verdicts or hung juries over the years, and he was finally caught in bribery and corruption. The fallout from the First Energy corruption case continues for Ohioans as the Ohio Capital Journal reports that the consequences continue as the bill at the center of the corruption scandal is still law. So this is the one where the Speaker of the House signed a bill into law, which gave First Energy a sweetheart deal. First Energy paid some $60 million in bribes to get the bill through, and it was shepherded by the convicted Ohio House Speaker Larry Householder. But for some reason, Ohio didn't revoke or otherwise undo the law. So the citizens of Ohio are still paying for the corruption of First Energy. How do you like that? Next up from Bloomberg, which reports that corrupt financier Jay Low, who was part of the group that looted the Malaysian Sovereign Wealth Fund 1MDB, has been forced to give back diamonds, which he got for his mother. The mastermind of the looting of 1MDB was ordered to forfeit a trio of flawless diamonds he had bought for his mother from a jeweler. The DOJ said that the assets recovered are worth almost $85 million in his forfeiture order, and the noose continues to tighten on J. Lo. Next up from the Washington Post, an admiral in the U.S. Navy who has been charged with corruption may have his former paramour as a key government witness, according to court filings. The woman is the only uncharged person who attended a key lunch where prosecutors allege the Navy's second highest ranking officer agreed with two execs to a sole source contract in exchange for a $500,000 a year job after he retired. Of course, the U.S. Supreme Court has said that, well, that's just a gratuity, so it'll be interesting to see if they uphold this obvious instance of corruption. Next up from the Financial Times, Meta has warned the EU that it risks missing out on AI advantages if they regulate it. Get that. Meta, who has claimed that they want regulation, they want to have responsible AI, but the minute the EU puts regulations around them, they scream, well, we can't do that because we will, EU will lose innovation. So Meta complains about not having regulation. Then when they slap regulation on it, guess what? They complain. Our next story comes to us, and frankly, a troubling story of Delta Airlines and their continued fallout from last week's cyber attack, which brought down flights nationwide, but for some reason it disrupted Delta even more. And the troubling part here is two things. Number one, Delta changed its policy that unaccompanied minors now had to be accompanied by an adult. Now, they didn't tell anybody that, and they didn't honor tickets where people had purchased, and you didn't find out about it till you checked in. So if you dropped your kid off and they couldn't check in, TS, baby. Well, Delta has treated its customers so badly that the Department of Transportation has opened an inquiry into them, and the fallout continues. It's really hard to imagine an industry that intentionally treats its customers as badly as the airline industry. Any way they can do to make things more difficult, they certainly seem happy, willing, and able to do that. And our final story comes to us from the Wall Street Journal, Risk and Compliance Journal, Dylan Tokar reporting that after a decade of publicly disclosed data revealing billions that doctors have received from pharmaceutical and medical device companies each year, it's really done little to shift the industry away from the practice. Studies have shown that the payments, which range from free meals to fees for speaking and consulting work, affect doctors' prescription decisions, leading to increased use of companies' drugs and devices. The Open Payments Database, which was launched in 2014 and traces its origins back to the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, was meant to bring greater transparency, but has yet to do so. Well, that's our stories. We hope you have a great weekend.
Have you ever wondered how to show the ROI of your compliance program? Have you struggled with the budgeting process, getting the funds you want for your compliance program? Well, I've partnered with Ethico to put together a white paper on the ROI of compliance, which shows you not only how to demonstrate ROI, but also how to speak finance when you're sitting across from the CFO with your budget proposals. Check out the website and get the white paper. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of 10 for 10. I hope you'll check out the newest podcast in the Compliance Podcast Network, the Compliance Tip of the Day. In Compliance Tip of the Day, I give a 5 to 8 minute summary of one tip that you can integrate into your compliance program or put together for greater compliance program efficiency.